Hello, and welcome to Unfiltered Eat Better, Think Better series. This is where we get real about our emotions, mindset, connection to food, and healing, and what it really takes to break free and feel good in your body and life again. I'm your host, Janie Shah, and in this series, I sit down with everyday people who face challenges with their health, body, their mind, their confidence, or long held beliefs that have held them back, and found powerful ways to rise and grow through it all. These are real stories, no filters, no fluff, just raw conversations about what they struggled with, what actually helped, and how they created transformation from the inside out. Whether you're on your own journey or just curious on what's possible, you are in the right place. Here's to eating better, thinking better, and living a phenomenal life. Let's go. So today I have a really interesting guest, and we met actually in a mastermind group for a platform that we were both using, and it's been a really incredible journey with DebraLee. And today we're having a conversation around debt. Financial debt. It's one of those things that so many of us silently carry, the stress, the shame, the feeling of being stuck maybe on a treadmill that you can't seem to get off or step off. And today's conversation is about breaking that silence. And I'm sitting down with DebraLee, who found herself, and she's going to tell us more about this, in $462,000 in debt, and somehow turned that around into freedom, not only financially, but emotionally. What I love about her story, which we're going to hear more about, is that the real shift didn't actually start with the money. It started with her mindset and her beliefs. And that's what we're all here about at Eat Better, Think Better is how can we think better to make our life better? So today we're going to talk through how she did it and what we can all learn about resilience, responsibility, mindset, and some of the things that she did to help her overcome it. So DebraLee, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Me too, me too. So, how about we just kick off with maybe you taking us back to that moment where you first realized how much debt you were in? What did that feel like for you in your body and in your mind?
It was a really, really challenging time. It seemed like, and my husband had a really good job, and I was working part-time, and I was raising a large family, and it just seemed like there was never enough money. It's like the debts were just piling on, and when we needed to, we'd use the credit card, or when we needed to, we'd at one point we even took out like a second mortgage on the house to help make expenses. And it just seemed like each year we were getting a little further and further under. And the stress was very real. I mean, I would feel it in my body. There was a ripple effect to my kids, a ripple effect in our relationship. My husband and I would be like, because money was such a negative topic, like we didn't want to work together on the money. And if we did, it would just turn into an argument. It's like, oh, this is just not good. Well, I'd always had, and I thought, I knew that it could be better. And so I'd always had this kind of obsession with, like, I'd read books and I'd go to seminars and I would do things to like try and, because I wanted to figure out this money thing. And and I knew it could be turned around. I just didn't know how. And there was a point where in the midst of this not enoughness, and when I say not enoughness, I mean not just money, but like emotionally, um, just always falling short, this attitude of I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not getting enough done. And some moms will relate to this where you work all day, like you're going 100 miles an hour, and then at the end of the day, you beat yourself up for what didn't get done because you don't see all the things you did. You just see the ones you didn't get done. And it was, anyway, so it wasn't good. Anyway, at that point, my husband lost his job. And it was a really serious situation because when I finally sat down to face my bills, and he did get another job pretty quickly, but the job he lost was a good high paying job. And the new one that he got paid like half of what the old one
Yeah.
did. And so we were in anyway, so when I sat down and finally figured out, our income to our expenses, we were almost twice as much in expenses as it was income. In other words, our expenses were 197% of our income, which
Wow.
is like dismal. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, it was so bad. And I was like, okay, now you can declare bankruptcy. And I was like, there's no way. That is just like completely outside who I am. And I don't blame someone who would do that, because there are circumstances where that's necessary. But I knew for me in that moment, I knew that was not an option. It just was not an option. And so I said, okay. And then at the same time, I kept getting these little tugs, this kind of intuitive knowing that I knew I was not only supposed to figure this out, but I was supposed to do it in a way, once I found the way out, I was to teach other people how to do it, to like blaze a trail and
Yeah.
then teach that to other people. And it's like, I knew that clear back when I was like just drowning, which sounds so ridiculous. I thought nobody's gonna listen to me because I'm, what kind of example am I? I thought, okay, first I'm gonna be the example. I'm gonna get myself out, and then I'm gonna start helping other people. And so I went to work. And this will sound really kind of funny, but I had done like all these books and seminars and all of these things, and I'd learned so much, but I was not applying what I learned.
Yeah.
And and it starts with a shift in mindset, because you've got to have a different mindset to get out of debt than to be buried in it. And it's like you get kind of accustomed to this pressure of owing everybody everything. And I was like, I just drew a line in the sand. I'm like, no more, no more debt. I'm not using the credit card. I'm not taking any new loans. I am not even gonna take my husband's suit to the dry cleaner unless I have the money to pay for it. It's
Yeah.
like I'm just so done with that. And
Yeah.
got really, really conscious about how we were spending our money, put together a really good budget and a really good plan. And it was interesting because as I was determined to pay back all of the money, and at one point, it's like I had 32 creditors, 18 of those were medical. My husband had a bunch of heart challenges. We had, doctor, dentist, whatever, cardiologist, add to the list. So, and then we had first mortgage, second mortgage, 2 car loans, I think like 4 or 5 credit cards. Like it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah. I want to rewind a little bit because you mentioned that you just knew it could be better. And I feel like sometimes when we're in a downward spiral, whether it's with financial debt or emotional health, mental health, sometimes we don't have that hope. I'm wondering for you, what was it that made you know that it could be better?
Okay, I have a very strong belief in God,
Okay. Yeah.
and I know in my heart that God is a very abundant person. Like the angels in heaven do not wear ratty, tattered robes. Do you know what I mean? They're not like pinching pennies up there to make it all work. And so I just knew that there was a higher, and I also felt that God loves his children and he doesn't want us to be in that situation. And I just knew, like my spirit just knew that it could be better and higher, and that it was my choices. I think here's another big piece of the puzzle was accountability. It's like when I looked around and I realized the situation I was in, I took full accountability for it. It was like, you know what? Nobody made me use my credit card.
Yeah.
It's like it would be Christmas time, and all the kids need something, and so we would use the credit card for Christmas. And then 6 months later, I'm still paying on the credit card. I don't even remember what the kids got. Like I don't know what they got.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we first implemented, is like I always went into Christmas with a budget. I'm like, this is how much I will spend on Christmas. This is how much I'll spend each month, or on
Yeah.
each kid. I'd
And
save
that
them.
happened after, right?
Yes, this is
Yeah.
after. Yep,
Okay.
this is after, because the before was we'd put it on a credit card and then try and pay it off later. The
Yeah.
after, when I said no more debt, we would plan for Christmas. We'd put a little away each month, and I'd say, this is how much I'm going to spend on each kid. And then I would stay within that budget. I would literally Christmas shop, and then I would make sure that that's all I spent on each kid. And to set expectations was good too, because I was like, I'd have my kids give me a Christmas list, like just kind of a wish list to give me ideas of what they want. And I said, okay, don't put anything on your list that's over $100, because you're
Mhm.
not going to get it. Now that was several years ago, and I know inflation, you're going to be spending more. But I mean, for any one item, I mean, we spent more
Yeah.
than that on each kid. We definitely
Yeah.
spent more than that on each kid. But the idea to kind of set expectations, it says it's going to be a great Christmas, but we're not doing high ticket items for
Yeah.
Christmas. So part of it, and that's just one example because it's setting expectations, you know, and
Yeah.
there's another key in that because you don't want to go into scarcity. It's kind of like you don't want to go into, oh, we can't afford anything and we're just not going to do Christmas this year. And we're just no, 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 no. Life still has to be fun. You still have to be able to enjoy things as you go. You just end up being smarter about it, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe instead of a huge vacation, maybe you take the kids and go camping, or maybe you go visit a relative or something. I don't know. Anyway, the idea is you can be
I
creative.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. I think that's such a really important point because as I was going to ask you about that, that as we start to also set limits on money, it can be really easy to start forming a very different relationship with money that you just mentioned. We don't want scarcity mindset either around the money.
Yes.
But you're doing
Yes.
this in a very logical and explainable way with your kids. But two, it probably, but I may be jumping the gun here and putting words in your mouth, but it may have opened up an opportunity as well to really explore other things in life that don't have to be so materialistic. For example, going out
Yes.
camping and spending time in nature, or going and spending time with family, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's not actually about the
Yes.
money, the feeling that Christmas brings to
Yes.
you.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so many times the money we spend, we're doing it for emotional reasons
Mm.
and not for logical reasons. You know,
Yeah.
um, okay, here's a good example for the mindset shift because if you're in now, okay, no, imagine me, twice as many expenses as we have money. And it'd be really easy to just be like, this is hopeless. Okay. But instead, I knew that if I had a negative mindset about it, that's like putting a lid on things. You don't progress when you're in negative energy. And I thought I need to open that up. And so in my mind, I thought, okay, first of all, we are among the wealthiest people on the planet. The here we I live better in my struggle, in the midst of my struggle, I live better than the kings of the past. I can take a hot shower and they couldn't do that. I can flush a toilet and they couldn't do that. I'm like, I am living
Yeah.
like a king. So even though money was tight, I really worked on the attitude of gratitude and of abundance and of appreciating, all that we did have. And that was really helpful. And then realizing that, I mean, we literally have more money than most of the world. There's people living on $2 a day all over the world. Like half the world lives on less than $4 a day, I think it is now. And to realize the abundance that we have. And then one thing I did also, a little mindset shift, is instead of paying bills, I stopped paying bills and I started doing what I call a wealth exchange, because I had money and then I would say, okay, what if I was in the marketplace and I was bartering with someone, back in the day when you had like furs and you're trading for trinkets or whatever, and you're doing trading. I thought, when I have money, I want to trade up. I don't want to trade down. I don't want to give my money for things of not value. I want to take my money and give it for things of highest value. So for example, if you look at your electric bill, you can say, okay, here's my electric bill. Oh my gosh, I got to pay the bills. I hate paying the bills. I didn't pay that can be the attitude. Or it can be, do you know, for like this little bit of money, I can flip on lights throughout my house. I can run my computer for just this tiny little bit of money. I'm going to exchange my wealth for that because that is so worth it to me to spend that money and have lights in my house. What would it be like if I had to use a candle? It's like, oh my gosh, how lucky am I that I can spend a little bit of money and have my whole house lit up? So it's kind of that shift in thinking where I am exchanging my money and then being very careful. I don't want to throw money away. I want to be sure that I am, again, trading up. So I call it a wealth exchange because money comes in and then I
Mhm.
exchange it for what's of highest and best value.
Yeah, I love that. I think we're going to highlight at this point the shift in the way you think about things and then the words you were using
Yes,
to say all of this, right? Because
yes,
it's huge when you can approach something with abundance and gratitude, just like how you've given in this example that, wow, I'm so grateful I can switch on the light, like bam, and it's on. It changes the whole attitude towards
yes,
paying the bill. I love that. I absolutely
yes,
love that. And
yes,
I also want to highlight that belief and faith that you mentioned in God, because whether your belief is in God or a higher power, the universe, or yourself, the
yes,
point is, it's the belief that is so, so strong. If you have the belief of abundance, abundance
yes,
will flow and it will come, right? And that's
yes,
one of, I think, 50% of the battle, if not more, is just having the belief that you're okay, that you are enough, that there is abundance, there's more than enough available for everybody that helps you get through it. And I
yes,
think if anyone starting on this journey could just start telling themselves, I believe I am enough and I am abundant, you could automatically start changing things and then changing the words that you use for your everyday, day to day, or end of month sort of actions can change the outcome and the feeling and the experience for you as well. I'm kind of curious as well on the enoughness because in while I've been learning rapid transformational therapy and I have been coaching clients through this, this is always something that comes up, the not enoughness. And it kind of goes across all areas of life, whether it's
yes,
money
yes,
or business or health
yep,
or
yep.
food, whatever it is. And how do you feel this belief of not enoughness has now shifted for you from
It-
then to
I'm,
now?
I am so glad you brought that up because it is a key element. And I learned that principles are universal, just like you said. It'll apply the and the things that I've learned about money, those same principles apply to your health. They apply to your relationships. They apply, it's really extraordinary. So with this specific not enoughness, I realized, I'm glad you brought it up. I realized that to me, enough, okay, what is enough? What is enough? And I thought
Yeah.
it's a bar and it's way over my head and I can't reach it. It's like, oh, I'm not enough. It's this standard that's just way above where I am and I can't reach it. And then I'm like, okay, well, who put the bar there? Well, I did. I thought, well, why don't I put the bar where I can reach it? Oh, well, so I also bring the bar down. Okay, I can be enough. And then I thought, well, why am I doing that? I'll just put it down by my knees. And then I'm always enough. You know what I mean? I can set it on the floor and then I'm always enough, you know?
Yeah.
And it's this idea of like an oak tree, you start with the acorn and it grows into the oak. Well, when it's a sapling, you don't yell at it and say, well, why are you not an oak tree yet, you stupid little sapling? You
Yeah.
don't do that. You just say, oh, you're such a cute little sapling and you're going to grow into this beautiful oak tree. And it's like to realize that I am just on a journey and where I'm at is where I'm supposed to be. And I'm learning what I'm supposed to be learning. And there's going to always be the next step. And to be okay with that, to say, okay, I'm moving forward. I don't have to be perfect. I am enough for where I am right now and I'm getting better. So that was kind of my mantra, was like, I'm enough and I'm getting better. Because there's that forward motion. There's something about, we don't want to say we're enough because then we think that's going to cut us off from progress. Like, oh, if I'm enough, then I don't have to do anything. Well, no, that's not it. It's like, I am enough for right now and I'm getting better.
Yeah. And interestingly, it's actually the opposite. When we have the belief or feeling that you're not enough, it's actually a stifling belief. It
Yes,
actually stops you from progressing or reaching your
yes,
greatest potential. And
yes,
so it's actually opposite because every client I've worked with, that's always a limiting belief. And as soon as we
absolutely.
can figure out where did that come from, we get to the root cause. As soon as you start turning it around, just like how you did on your money
Yeah,
journey, all of a sudden you start doing what you want to do and you start overcoming debt or feeling better,
yeah,
whatever it
yes,
is. And that's exactly what you did because you turned the debt around into actual financial freedom.
yes. When I realized that it was between my own two ears, that this enoughness thing was my choice,
Yeah.
that I can use my agency to choose to be not enough or to choose to be enough. Like it literally is that simple, that it's in my own imagination. It's
Mm.
not enough thing. And when I
Yeah.
realized that, then I just took accountability and I was like, okay, if I can think I'm not enough, I can think I am enough, and I get to decide that.
Yeah. Was this all things you had heard before, or how did you come across this to now go from a place of I'm in debt to taking full responsibility, and on top of that, without blame or without beating yourself up in order to move forward?
I'm glad you brought that up because I learned it used to be I didn't blame anyone else, I just blamed me. So
Mm.
it used to be I would heap blame on myself. It's like, well, it's no one's fault, but it's my fault. And then I learned, excuse me, I learned that as long as it's my fault, I'm stifling my own growth again. Do you know what I mean? Blame,
Yeah.
blame does not work at all. And that's kind of when I made that shift to, instead of blaming myself, accountability is taking responsibility without the negative energy associated to it.
Yeah.
So I am accountable. It's like I made all the choices that got me here. Okay, so that's accountable. But to take the negative energy out of it, to take the blame out of it, it's like, hey, you know what? I chose. Okay, here's an example. Zig Ziglar, he talked about, he says, I am intentionally, he says, he made a decision to lose weight when he was first starting his presenting career. And if you haven't heard of Zig Ziglar, he was a huge motivational speaker back in the day, like super famous. And he said, I intentionally was 37 pounds overweight. He says, I decided I was going to lose weight because I was deliberately 37 pounds overweight. And he says, I know it was deliberate because I never accidentally ate anything.
Oh, I love that.
And so it's that idea of accountability without blame. It's like, I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. Because I was a master at that. I was way too good at beating myself up. And I realized it was keeping me stuck. It was stopping me from everything that I was trying to create. And
Yeah.
just a conscious decision to let that go. I do have one little technique that I want to share with you that has really helped a ton.
Yeah, please.
And
Before you
that,
do that,
yeah,
I want to just step in there because so many people in the conversations I've had have shared this aspect of taking responsibility as the first point at which they could actually start moving forward then. Because the more we blame ourselves or other people for our circumstances or situations, the more we just chain ourselves to that particular reality. And
yes,
it's so important to be able to just review, reflect, just accept and take responsibility for your actions
yes,
without shame, without guilt, without blaming yourself, so that you
yes.
can finally be free and think, okay, now that I know it was me who did this, it is also me who can change the future. It is also me that can change tomorrow or take, a different step forward. And that's kind of what happened in my own health journey as well. It's that moment of taking responsibility and saying, you know what, it's my eating habits, it's my actions that have brought me here, but I'm not going
Yes,
to sit and cry on this sofa anymore and complain about my weight and health because
yeah,
I accept that it was me who did it, which means I can turn it around as well. So I just really want to share that because I think it's a really important point is just be kind to yourself, accept responsibility, and know
yes,
that you can then turn it around as well.
yes, yes. And that was probably the biggest thing is I learned instead of beating myself up. And I used to, it'd be like I had a stick. Like I had a stick and I was beating myself emotionally in my imagination. I would just beat myself up. I would at the end of the day, all these things I didn't get done and all these ways I fell short and all the things were, and I pictured, I thought, you wouldn't, you wouldn't do that to your best friend. You wouldn't take a stick and beat the heck out of them.
Yeah,
You wouldn't do that to your kids. You wouldn't do that to your husband. And so it was this transformation of self-compassion. I remember a point where I was like, I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. I'm just going to do the best I can. And you know what? That's enough. And if some days are going to be better than others, and I'm going to forgive myself and I'm going to move forward and
yeah,
put the stick down. And that sounds so silly, but I remember, after that resolve, there'd be times I'd pick up the stick and start beating myself up, and I'd go, nope, Debbie, put the stick down, be kind. Put the stick down, be kind, have some self-compassion. And I learned to look at myself. In fact, this is a really, if you get a baby, if you're guilty of beating yourself up, get a picture of yourself as either a baby or a young child and think, would you beat that? Would you beat that kid? Would you beat that little child? And you look at yourself and you go, oh my gosh, so innocent, so cute, so sweet. And you can see it in yourself as a young person. Sometimes it's harder to see it in ourselves as an older person.
Yeah.
But that child needs love, and that child is still in here, and it is, and no one's going to do it for me. There's no cavalry that's going to come that's going to love me, that's going to save me if I'm beating myself up. It's like
Yeah.
being an abusive parent to yourself. I'm like, no, don't do it. And I learned to just be kind and to be compassionate and to just forgive myself and move forward and be kinder to me. And that self-compassion was a huge, huge turning point.
Yeah, that's incredible. One of the things you mentioned when we were chatting before in our notes was this idea as well of not having to do it all alone. Was there
Mm,
support around you that helped you in this move forward?
thank you for that. Yeah, because I've always been, in the past, I'd always been a lone wolf. Like I had to do it all alone. It was all on me, and some of the people that I would turn to in my life were kind of not there for me. And so if you're in a situation where, maybe you're not getting good support from your husband, or maybe you don't have a husband, maybe you're on your own and you feel very alone. And the key is you're surrounded by people. There are people who will help you, whether it's a friend, whether it's a coworker, whether it's someone in your neighborhood, whether it's someone that you just meet, like for example, in our mastermind, we so many resources that we learn from each other. There are people out there who will support you. And one of my favorite sayings is, no one can do it for you, but you can't do it alone. And you really do need to have a team. And so that's been a huge, I used to try and do it all by myself, and I don't anymore. I have a mastermind where we support each other. I also have a friends group, and we meet once a week for a half an hour and offer support, because on any given week, someone's had a rough time.
Yeah.
And someone's, somebody's high and somebody's low, and you can help buffer and so we meet once a week. This group of friends, we've been friends since high school. So we've been friends for what, over 45 years. And we just get together once a week and we just support each other. And it's short and everybody's busy, but I'm in a Toastmasters club and we support each other, so it's like you just look for, if you feel alone, you can't really do it alone, so you just find people and you can create it. You
Yeah.
can create your own little support,
Yeah.
and they will lift you up when you're down and you'll lift them up when they're down, and it's so powerful and it really keeps you. Here's the thing, because we're human, we're going to get down, we're going to be frustrated, we're going to be angry or upset or discouraged. It's going to happen, but the question is how long are we going to stay there? Because every time you get there, it stops your progress, and the quicker you can break out of it, then you're back on the road again. There's a thing in fitness. One of the ways that they tell if someone's really fit is they call it the recovery rate. So it's not necessarily how fast they run or how far they run or whatever, but they'll hook them up, to their little heart monitors, and they see after a run how quickly their heart recovers, how quickly their oxygen level comes back. So it's the
Mm.
recovery rate. So a really good test of fitness is your recovery rate, how fast you recover. Faster you recover, the healthier you are. Well, that principle applies to finances. It also applies to our attitude. So it's like if you get a hit, well, how long are you going to stay there?
Mm.
You can carry a grudge for a really long time, or you can be mad at somebody for a really long time. If you have a fight with someone, you can carry that for a long time. Or how quick's your recovery rate? You're going to feel it, but then learn to move through it quickly. Like feel it and then let it go. Feel it
Mm.
and let it go and move forward, because then you're back to productivity, you're back to making things work, and you're just happier by not holding.
Yeah, I love that. And you definitely are an example of that. We've been in this mastermind together for over a year, definitely. And you've gone through some difficult things, but it's just so incredible to see you always show up, and your rate of recovery is extremely, extremely fast. And
Thank you.
it's always been such an amazing thing to watch and to learn from as well, that no matter what is going on in life or how hard it can be, you let yourself feel, and you let yourself move
Yes.
through it, and then you
Yes.
let go and you move forward. And I really, really admire that. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for showing me that.
And you hit a key point I really want to emphasize is it's not about avoiding it. It's
Mm.
not about, you know, avoiding what you're going through. It's about experiencing it and then letting it go. So it goes through you and then you let it go. Because if you just avoid it, then it comes back harder and will hit you again.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
instead, you feel it, you let the experience happen, but you just don't stay there. You just don't
yeah,
want to stay there.
yeah, absolutely. So take us back a little bit. You were going to share a trick with us, and
Oh, yes.
yeah, if you want to go ahead with
Yeah,
that.
for self-compassion. This has been so good for me. It was just a real turning point. And as every night, as my head hits the pillow, and I literally do it just as I'm falling asleep. And I think maybe that's helpful because it goes into my subconscious mind. But I told you how I used to just beat myself up every night. Like I'd run so hard during the day and I couldn't see all the good things I'd done, but I would beat myself up for what didn't get done. Instead, every night, as my head hits the pillow, I list 5 wins for the day. 5 wins. And what that looks like is, and it can be anything can be a win. So it can be something you accomplished. It can be something that went well. It can be something that you enjoyed. You know, it can be anything that's a win. So it doesn't necessarily have to be accomplishment, although those count too.
Yeah,
And you can have a really rough day and you can flip it into a win. So for example, I'd be like, oh man, I really blew my diet today. Like, oh my gosh, I really blew it. But I only had one piece of chocolate cake and I wanted two. So that's a win. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I stopped
yeah,
after I had I shouldn't have had the cake, but after I had the cake, I was done and I didn't have the second one. So that's a win. Or here's another one. If you had the second piece of chocolate cake, then you're like, but you know what? I forgive myself and I'm starting again. I've drawn my line in the sand and I just started again and I am back on the game. So that's a
yeah,
win. So sometimes I'm literally forgiving myself, like, and resetting as a win. If I had a terrible day, I still end the day with a win.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I think it's so, so important. I do something similar but different, and I learned this from Mind Valley, which is great platform. Anyways, talk for another day. But I do something similar. As my head hits the pillow, as I'm doing my deep breathing, I say 3 things that I'm grateful for in the day.
Mm,
It can be however small or big, that the sky was blue, that my dog hugged me, or that I'm just grateful for the food that I had, whatever it is, right? 3 gratefuls. And also, which I found really powerful to help with self-compassion and self-love, is always saying one thing that I love about myself. And,
mm.
initially it was so hard. It was so
Yes,
difficult to be like, wait,
yes,
one thing that I love about myself. What? Um,
yes,
but then, the more you practice it and the more familiar it gets, the better it gets. And then the more your self-esteem and self-confidence grows, because, no one can meet that love accept yourself. And the more
yes,
you can accept that and understand it, the more you're going to take this a lot more to heart on growing your self-compassion, self-esteem, and self-love. So, and it's powerful, like you said, it goes into your subconscious mind when you're doing just at that moment when you go to sleep. That thought and that praise that you just gave yourself amplifies 6,000 times because it
yes,
went into your subconscious.
yes. You wake up the next morning with a positive, you're already preset with a
Yeah,
positive for the next morning. And it's so, so good and so powerful.
yeah, absolutely.
I want
Um,
to, can I advance my story just a little bit? Because I want to mention that by changing my attitude, and here's the tricky part is because when you're in a lot of debt and you have evidence all around you. You've got all this evidence that you're just in trouble. Okay. It's hard to imagine being out of that. And so being able to create in your mind, because you craft things in your mind before you craft them in the real world, before you physically, things are created, on a, say, a spiritual level before they're created in a physical level. And so it's so important that you kind of ignore the evidence and create this new future in your mind, because then you're resourceful and you can start to create it in your future, in the tangible world.
Yeah.
And you start to create your own evidence, and it's like it builds a bridge to what you want. It builds a bridge from what you don't want to what you want, because you're creating it in your mind first, and then you get up in the morning, you get to work and you create it in the real world.
Yeah. Super powerful. I mean, that's exactly the power of your mind, the power of your subconscious, the power of your imagination. What sort of daily habits or rituals helped you build consistency and resilience towards that? Because I can imagine in a world where creditors are knocking on your door, or you're always saying, "Oh my gosh, I have this to pay off, I have this to pay off."
Yeah.
How did you then create that environment where you could just imagine the better thing?
Well, I have a huge distraction right now, so I'm just gonna, for those who,
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, um,
That was a cat for anyone listening to the audio.
sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
Uh, well, you got to enjoy your life while you go, right?
Yeah.
Okay, can you restate the question? I apologize.
So, what were the daily habits or
Oh,
rituals that
yes.
helped you ground
Okay.
in this new way of thinking?
Okay, so the first one is recognizing debt for what it is. Okay, the first one was an absolute line in the sand. I am just not going to do debt anymore. And you won't be perfect. If you make that as a resolve, you won't be perfect, and that's okay. But here's the thing. If debt had a voice, this is what it would say to you. Debt would say, if you can't afford it, I will help you pay more for it. If you can't afford it, I will help you pay more for it. In other words, it doesn't make sense. It's like, why would you pay more for something that you can't afford in the first place? You know? And debt also defies the law of the harvest. And I want to touch on that really quickly. If you think of a farmer, and he's got to, tear up the soil, and he's got to plant, he's got to water, he's got to weed, he's got to do all these, fertilize, all these things he's got to do. Why does he do that? He does it because he wants a harvest at the end, right? So he's willing to go through all that work so that he can have the harvest at the end. Well, that's how our money is supposed to be. We work, we earn, then when we have the money, then we've got that's the harvest, and then we get to decide what to spend it on. That's the energy of the harvest. And what I mean by that is, when you're plowing, when you're planting, when you're, weeding, okay? In other words, when you're going to work on Monday morning, when you're facing traffic and you're, doing all the stuff you have to do to work, why are you doing that? You're doing it for the reward. Okay, it's like, okay, that's motivation to do the work because I want the reward. The problem with debt is we get the harvest up front. So it defies the law of the harvest. It's like, give me the crop and then I'll plant. Give
Mm.
me the reward and then I'll go to work. Okay, give me the money now and then I'm going to pay for it later. Well, you do pay for it later and you pay more for it later, but what's your energy doing the work? Your energy is, I have to go to work, I have to pay the bills, I have to pay the credit card, I've already had the reward, I've already received the benefit. So you're in this drudgery, grinding it out with no reward, because you've already got the reward. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
debt, it's like debt crosses our wires, that we're not wired that way. And so if you're feeling burdened by debt, it's because you got the reward and now you're paying the price. So you got to get those in the right sequence. It's like you do the work because you want the reward. And
Yeah.
when I was paying off debt, because I had a lot to shift that energy, I was buying my freedom. I had motivation to work because I was buying my freedom. And it's so funny. It's like there's a lot of wives out there. There's kind of where a wife will go out and she'll buy and she'll shop and she'll buy all this stuff and then she hides it in the closets where husband doesn't know or whatever, that kind of thing. I was doing stuff like that, only I wasn't buying stuff. I was like saving money here and saving money there, and then I was paying off this extra bill because I was so excited because I was buying my freedom. There was
Yeah.
nothing I could hang in my closet that would even begin to measure with the feeling of freedom. The
Yeah.
feeling of freedom. And as I paid off each, credit card, as I paid off each car loan, as I paid off the second mortgage, as I paid off the first mortgage, not
Yeah.
only was I able to create freedom to where, I'm debt free. I don't owe anybody anything. But not only that, I was able to make it so that I can live on 20% of my income. So it's like instead of being upside down 100, instead of my expenses being double my income, now my my expenses are about 20% of my income.
And
So
that's without giving up your quality of life.
and that's yeah. I travel, I have fun, I enjoy my family. In fact, I'm actually going to Europe in about 10 days. I'm going to go do a tour around the British Isles. And so and the idea of when money comes in, you get to decide what you want to do with it. Like, oh, well, I'll put it into savings, I'll put it in investments, I'll save some for later, or hey, we're going to do this fun trip or whatever. That is absolutely possible for every single person. Absolutely possible. But it's this journey of the right mindset followed by the right action, avoiding debt as much as
Yeah.
possible. And anyone, I guarantee anybody can do it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you've also spoken about the energetics of it as well. And I love how you describe that harvest and reward and the price you have to pay because it totally makes sense from an energy perspective as well. And so this is what it is, you guys. It's not only about the money itself, but it's all the things behind it that make it
Yes.
be the way that it is. And I love that you've worked through all those sorts of different layers. And we could keep going on and on and on, and we've spoken so much. But I have one last question, and then we're going to wrap up with the final question.
Okay.
I am just curious to know how is your relationship with money different today compared to when you were in debt?
I see money as a tool. Money used to be my slave driver. It used to be my master. It used to drive me. It used to be a source of shame and overwhelm and discouragement and scarcity and not enoughness and struggle and survival. Survival. It used to just be survival. And the transformation by choosing to be the master and let money be the servant, you know, that transition has been so powerful because honestly, I don't, for example, I have a company teaching people how to manage their money and how to do exactly what I have done. And I have set it up so it's like I don't need the money from the company. And then so I'm giving it back to the people that are in the company so that they have a little more to help pay off their bills and pay off their debts, that kind of thing. So it's like it's a huge give back.
Yeah.
And okay, to answer the question more succinctly, now, because my real goal, my big goal is philanthropy. It's about giving back. That's the whole motivation that has been behind everything that I've done because I don't want to be in survival. I want to be a giver. I
Mm.
want to be able to help other people. And that is the single most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. That's better than any vacation. That's better than any trinket. You know, it's that ability to give back that when I see somebody in need, I have a reserve and say, hey, let me help you. This situation is temporary. Let me help you out. And to be able to give back to other people, that's the underlying momentum of all of it is philanthropy, is being able to give back, being able to help other people. And
Oh,
it doesn't have to be financial. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be handing them money. It can be teaching them how to be a little smarter with their money, or it can be, just a word of advice, or a lot of times it's just a word of encouragement
Yeah.
when somebody's down,
Absolutely.
and reminding them of their value, and reminding them that they are worth it, reminding
Yeah.
them that they are precious and powerful, and they forget that they're powerful because they feel beaten down. And it's like, okay, I know you feel beaten down, but you are powerful.
Yeah.
Let's reconnect you with that.
Yeah. I love that. Absolutely love that. And you did mention that you do now have a coaching practice. So if someone wanted to reach out to you or find you, how could they do that?
Just go to financialliberty.com. That's it.
Okay.
Just go to financialliberty.com and you'll find me.
Perfect. Well, DebraLee, thank you so much for this conversation. I mean, your journey is just incredible, and everything you've shared, so much wisdom, so many things that I'm taking away from this as well. And it's a great reminder that, transformation is not only just about the numbers. It is more. It's about the identity, you accepting responsibility, the courage to take that one small step and then another, and then shifting our mindset and beliefs.
Yep.
So, from $462,000 in debt to financial freedom, your story really proves that no matter how impossible things feel, change is possible if you have that belief. And
Yes.
so just have that belief. And I'd love to end with the question that I ask all my guests, which is if healing had a voice, what would it say to you right now?
If healing had a voice, it would say, believe in yourself. It would say, you are worth it. It would say, you can do it. And it would say that healing is the natural state that I have put you in. Your body's going to naturally heal, or your emotions are going to naturally heal. It's the net. If you'll get out of the way, if you'll stop getting in the way of your own healing by criticizing yourself, putting yourself down, beating yourself up, you got to get out of the way. Because if you will love yourself or be kind to yourself, then the healing's going to happen naturally.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And for all those listening, if this conversation resonated with you, helped you, or made you feel seen, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And come join our free Facebook community, Eat Better, Think Better. It's where these kinds of conversations continue and where you'll find real people walking the same path. And if you're ready to go deeper into your own journey, whether it's healing your relationship with food, shifting your mindset, or breaking free from beliefs that are holding you back, you'll find more support and resources and ways to work with me at www.eatbetterthinkbetter.com. So until next time, here's to eating better, thinking better, and living a phenomenal life. Let's go.